So now that we've created our project, let's go ahead and explore one of the files that Django has created for us as part of our project, and this file is settings.py. And before we go into settings.py, just to mention that manage.py is a file that we are not generally need to touch, but we're going to use that file to be able to execute commands on this Django project, and we will see what we mean by that later on. So just a quick overview for settings, and if you don't understand most of the things I'm going to say, it's okay, because throughout the course we're going to go deep in every one of these, so you'll understand more. So just to give you an overview for what is settings.py. So settings.py contains important configuration settings for our Django application. Settings.py comes preloaded with a couple of default settings, but we might want to change those settings to be able to add features to our application as well, or make some modifications to how the application behaves. So the settings.py file starts with importing OS, and OS stands for operating systems. Since Django works on an operating system, and operating systems are like Windows, Linux, or Mac, so we import that operating system, and then using base dir directory, we're giving the path of the manage.py, or the file that is holding manage.py, to that operating system. So we're connecting our Django project to our operating system, since, as we said, Django works on that operating system. So after that, we have a security key, and every Django project has a single key that's unique for that project to prevent security leaks. And you can modify that, so we can add an F here, as long as it's a unique key. That's okay. And after that, we have the debug equal true. So this is very useful while learning and developing. So let's say you're writing code and you try to run your project and you write something wrong, let's say. So Django will give you an error that something went wrong, and because we have a debug equals true, Django is going to show us where that error is. However, let's say you bring that project to a live server, you can't keep the debug true, because eventually, if you are putting your project on a live server, you are 100% sure that there won't be any errors that you need to debug. But you've already went through the whole project. You've seen where the errors you've debugged them all, and now there's no need to have the word equal true, because you're quite sure that there won't be any errors at opening when opening that application. So when you put that project on a live server, you just put debug equals to false. However, if you are a programmer and you're trying to build an application, you need to put the debug equal true, because we all make mistakes while writing the application, and we need to know where we did that mistake. And the debug is going to help us build that project without any errors. Next, we have allowed hosts. We're going to skip that for now, and then we have the installed apps. So much of those are installed by default, which we'll explain later, but this is where we'll build our applications. We add this application to our installed app, the one that we've created, of course. So you can think of Django as a project, and inside of that project we have applications. And in order to have access to those applications, you need to include them in the installed apps. And we'll see that when we create our own application. How do we add it? So that's for installed applications. So next we have middleware. So middleware has to do with the requests and how they are handled, and how security is handled. So requests can be like those that we saw in the HTTP video section, where we saw that we can send a request from the client server and vice versa. No need to get deep into this. We'll get to see them later. However, for now, don't panic if you don't understand what are these. You just need to know that they handle your security and how requests are handled. Next, we have the route URL configuration, and we'll cover that too. This is how Django knows how to route when giving URLs. Paths are automatically surrounded by Django. And you're going to understand more deeply what I mean by URLs and paths in upcoming videos, and they are going to be more clear for you. Next, we have the templates, and Django renders out its HTML templates. Where do we store them? How are they rendered, and how do they work? We'll talk about these later. But essentially, the HTML page is that's rendered in Django. So you can think of the HTML pages as templates. And next, we have the WGCI application, and this has to do with how the server works. So remember, we have a client and a server, and you don't need to go deep into this. Just know that this has to do with how the server works. And then we have the database. So if you don't know what's a database, it's no problem. We'll get into them later. However, just to give you an overview on each application, each application has to have some way to store its data. So let's say your application asks the user to enter his name, his age, I don't know, a bunch of information, and you need to store that information somewhere, and that somewhere is databases. So databases help us store information from the web. And so Django maps to databases very well. And by default, it has an SQLite database already there. So SQLite is a version of database, and we have many types of databases. And SQLite, which is SQLite 3, is one of them, which is by default there. Next, we have the authentication password validators, and this is going to validate that the passwords are good. And you're going to ask, where are we going to use these passwords? Don't worry, we'll cover them later. You'll see where we can type in passwords and how we can type in good passwords. And then we have the internalization. Let's give that for now. And finally, we have the static files. So this is where you store your images, your JavaScript, your CSS. All these types of images, JavaScript, CSS are static files, as in they don't change. And so settings.py controls all of this and how our Django project is running. This is just a quick overview. As I said, if you don't understand some of the things I said, don't panic. It's okay. Throughout the course, everything is going to be more clear for you.